Hang on.
Mine says that we're live on YouTube.
Okay, then we're getting close on that. Then. Okay, all right, here we go. We're going live on YouTube, and from now on, we're just going live on YouTube because Facebook doesn't seem to want to work for me or whatever. So thank you all so much for being here today. Of course, my name is Aislinn Campbell. This is the 6th episode of Voices for Wellness. And this is just this awesome concept that we came up with. A group of us were we were all talking about what can we really do to have those really hard conversations that we're needing to have right now about everything we can do to intensify our own wellness and our household's wellness and just really be healthier, stronger beings for many reasons, but particularly as we're dealing with a pandemic, how do we strengthen our bodies so that if and when we run into this particular virus, we know how to handle it. And so this came about. We put together a group of people, just started talking about how we can really get those voices for wellness out there into the community. And I have had at this point 5 episodes, and it's come from all different types of folks. We've had licensed professional counselors, we've had nutritionists, we've had pediatric surgeons, and so many more types of people. And today I am super excited to bring to you my friend Hannah Cummings. And Hannah is, we just got to know each other very recently, and Hannah's going to give us some tips and tricks on what she's been doing for her whole family, whole health. So Hannah, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much offering your time. And I would love it if you would just introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Wellness is one of my favorite topics. I've been at it for a while now. I would say I grew up as a typical Mexican-American family. We had tamales at Christmas. We ate pretty much whatever we wanted. But I also grew up being very athletic. So those two things kind of helped me and hurt me a little bit in my adventure after I got married. So I've been married for almost 11 years. On New Year's Day, it'll be 11 years. And I have 4 daughters now. 8 is my oldest, 6, 3, and my baby will be 1 in 3 weeks. So we have a busy full house over here.
Very good. Yeah. So yeah, and we ran into each other on Instagram actually. And tell me the title of your Instagram.
Mrs. C's Wellness Wonders.
Mrs. C's Wellness Wonders. So you guys go out there and at her, and so you can see what all she's up to. You're very good at it. Like I watch your stories and I'm like, impressive. I think that might be, I think there might be a little bit of an age gap there that
Hey, I'm just trying to do my best. I'm 30 myself, and I still feel like the young ones have it down way more than I.
Exactly. They're moving very fast. So tell us a little bit about really how wellness became a primary focus in your life.
Sure. So like I said, I kind of grew up eating pretty much whatever I wanted to in the moment. But I did live a pretty active lifestyle. My husband and I got married and moved out to California. He was in the Navy at the time, and he worked as a corpsman. So 2 years into our marriage, we had our first daughter. Mm-hmm. And it was a great awakening for me, I guess. I think all first kids are great awakenings for all people. But mainly on the wellness side, because my daughter was born with a lot of issues. She had a lot of allergies as a baby, and we didn't recognize it at first. She was just crying all the time. I mean, technically it would be called colic, but there was a reason for colic. You know, there's the underlying reasons for that. So, we looked into it further and found out she had allergies. And at the time I was breastfeeding her. So her allergies became my allergies in a sense. So I had heard of elimination diet. And what that is you're supposed to eliminate one food at a time for 2 weeks at a time and try to figure it out that way. And I wasn't about that. Like, her life was miserable. My life was miserable at the time. So I just tried to go off of everything I could and then slowly add things back so I could more easily figure out what her allergies were. Because at that time she was only 6 weeks old and they weren't doing any testing on her.
Right.
So I kind of had to figure it out on my own, which is really tough. And after we did that, I mean, her main ones were like milk, dairy, eggs, gluten, some main things that people tell you to look out for at first. But fast forward to her year one, and she started eating now. And so instead of being filtered through breast milk, she then was getting food directly. And that led to a lot of issues for her. Skin wise, her eczema was crazy. Her whole year one to year two, she did not grow at all. She started losing her hair. It was really, really a tough time. And at the time, my husband was gone in training for the military at like the toughest time, of course. And so I was by myself. I was with my family, but by myself, trying to get through nights where she would wake up every hour. And so the best thing that we could do at that point, because she was still not, I don't know why they wouldn't test her for like, well, her blood, they couldn't test because they couldn't get to a vein. She was so chunky. God did give me chunky babies. So I really feel like that helped her during that first year. She could reach into those fat storages and get through that first year. But what we did end up doing was intolerance tests. So we tested all her intolerances, and we found out that one of the main things she was allergic to was corn. And some random things like beef and pork were on there, watermelon, like random things. But as soon as we got that under control, she was 180 degrees, totally different, a new kid. She was happy and so much healthier. And yeah, that's really where our wellness track began. From there, it kind of trickled into I can't wear certain makeup around her. So I had to clean up all my makeup products. I had to stop wearing perfume, which was kind of big to me earlier. And just everything that you take, I don't know, I used to take for granted, bath wash, body wash, shampoo, things that would trigger her or set her off really started to become things that I would research and look into. And when we had our second daughter, we were in here in Corpus Christi. So my first daughter was born in California. My second daughter was born here in Corpus Christi, and we had her over at Bay Area. And my preparation for having her totally changed. Having gone through everything I did with my first daughter, I wanted to set my second daughter's life out with the best possible start. I like to think of, we can't control everything, but the things that we can control, I'm going to try my best to do the best for her that I can. So when we had her, I had done a lot more research on natural birth, and I had lots of friends and family who had gone through other natural birthing processes. And I looked into things like hypnobirthing or spinning babies and all kinds of other classes. And I really just needed something that would tell me what to focus on without me having to rethink it. So in a lot of these other classes, there was a reaching or a talking or communicating with a higher power. And for me, that higher power is God. And I really needed, and I knew I had already been through labor before. So I knew in labor, I would really just need someone to say, God, do this, God, do that, and not just like reach into that higher power. I needed the direct words. I needed that. So I did my research on that, and I stumbled upon two really big ticket items that helped me through my second labor and delivery. And that was a book called Supernatural Childbirth. And in it, it just really talks about how you can rethink about the process of labor and train your mind to not really think of it as pain, but as an action to progression. And to really just eliminate that word pain from your whole pregnancy, and just remember that your body is preparing. So like the Braxton Hicks, I probably had Braxton Hicks, but what I called preparation contractions for, like the whole last trimester. I felt like it was just way more than with my other daughter. And I just kept telling myself, my body's just preparing. And when it came time to have her, I had her in a matter of 3.5 hours, which was as long as it took me to push out my first baby. So the book, and then I also had an audio that I listened to called Childbirth in the Glory. And those two things really, really helped to prepare my mind for what I could control and to let go of everything that I couldn't control. So that second.
And I was going to kind of go back a little bit to, where that becomes it's not unusual. My big step into wellness came with my first child. Like, I took some little steps as a younger woman because I was having some real stomach issues, and I tend to be pretty turned off by the system because I had had so much experience with it from younger issues that I'd had when I was a child. And so once they started saying, oh, you're going to have to take medicine and we're going to have to do different types of things, I started kind of turning away from that on my own. But then my first child was where the massive, massive shift came. And it came with me I had to figure out how to solve problems. And the thing that I learned back then, and it kind of sounds a little bit like this, and I'd love to talk about this a little bit, is that there wasn't a lot of answers available. And that is really how I got to where I am right now, because there weren't answers. There weren't people for me to ask questions of. So in a lot of ways, you just have to put on your big girl panties and be brave and just say, I'm going to do the best that I can do. And I'm going to ask all the questions. And I think that when you start rolling into childbirth and kind of taking more control over that, when you don't have a million books that can answer all your questions, or even a doctor or anything, you start reaching for a higher power to help as well, because you don't really know necessarily who to ask the questions of. And it's certainly made it a lot easier over the years. And it's a huge part of why this Voices for Wellness and talking to you and hearing your stories is so important, because I think there are so many families and women out there that are just looking for one person that I can calibrate to, I can ask questions from, I can just say, okay, what did you do? Or how did you do it? And not feel judged just because I might want to do it a little bit differently. And so I love that. And I wanted to kind of step back into that original, like how you got there and how it has shifted everything as you've gone forward. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So it was really difficult to find information. At the time, this was, like I said, my oldest daughter is 8. She's 8.5 now. So it was like that long ago. And I was one of the first people in my circle to also have a baby. So that makes it another level of difficulty. I came from a family of 5, so I knew babies pretty well. And so I knew something was wrong. I just didn't quite know who to ask. And when we went to see doctors, they didn't have anything for me but creams or steroids. And while some of them helped somewhat, it still wasn't fixing the problem. So I really did have to do a lot of research and looking into and figuring out first through my own diet and what she would react to just within a matter of like from one feeding to the next. If I had eaten something and then she nursed, an hour or two later, she would already be reacting immediately after nursing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't stop nursing because that her allergies would be just exponentialized by using formula, which is another whole scary thing. Like, I know a lot of moms do turn to that, but for me, that was even more scarier than just eliminating my diet. And for me, I haven't had a lot of allergies myself as my own person without my children. So I definitely have seen the struggle that it is to do something for your own health and well-being, and then another level to do it for your child. Because a lot of people would look at me and see it all, I'd go to events bringing my own food and bringing her own food. And I still do that. But a lot of people would see that and just kind of be dumbfounded why anybody would do that. But if you had lived my life, if you were up all night, the way I was, if you could see the drastic difference that it would make with her, then you would do anything. Like, I would not eat even one bite of a cupcake, no matter how good it looked, because I knew the effects that it could have on her. So it was really, it was really a trial and error. And I really appreciated my brother-in-law, who's a chiropractor. He was the one who suggested the intolerance test. Before that point, I hadn't ever heard of it. All I knew of was allergy tests, and they weren't testing her because of her age and because of her lack of access to her blood vessels. So it was really difficult to find medical answers in that form. Once we did find the intolerances, it was a lot easier. But even now, she's 8 years old and we still have issues with her allergies, and taking care of environmental allergies became an issue also when she turned around 2 and 3 years old. So that was really a big another big wake up call for things like I said, perfumes. I was already not doing those things, but I had to start asking family members if we were going to be around. Can you please not have, your plugins in your house? Can you please not? She was in a wedding when she was 3 years old. I had to keep her out of the room so the hairspray wouldn't get around her. Like all these things would trigger her respiratory system. And it was really scary because once she started to have any kind of asthma attack, her asthma issues would last for a week, and it would seem and appear like she was sick, very, very sick. And by the time that started happening, I had my second daughter, and then I had my third daughter on the way. When it started getting really bad, she would be like that for about 1 week out of the month. And so I just, at that point, realized I needed to make sure that she wasn't getting any real sickness. And it was all we had to focus on was taking care of her allergies. So that's actually kind of the origins of Mrs. C's Wellness Wonders, was when I started using elderberry syrup, because I did some research on how effective it was with viruses and colds and just overall immune support. And I really needed that for our family because we could not afford for her to be more sick than she already was with things that were out of our control. So I tried to, like I said, do the best that I could to control the thing that I could. Yeah, that's how Mrs. C's Wellness Wonders kind of started, with the research on elderberries and how amazing that those were. And we started taking them. It was actually a midwife of mine with my baby number 3. That was my first home birth. So she was actually the one who started making elderberry syrup, and I started buying it from her. This was my 3-year-old now, so it was 4+ years ago, and it really made a big difference with us. I really felt safer, like my anxiety levels when I went out, and when we were among other friends, I didn't have to worry so much about her immune system being attacked in another way. I could have a little sigh of relief of, at least she's better supported. If there was something that we would catch, that we would be able to combat it a lot easier. At that time, I also got into essential oils. So that was another level of protection. I just felt like I tried to add levels of protection that I could control to combat the things I could not control.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I've listened to this whole thing and talking to you and making that connection over the childbirth part of it, because my first child was born premature, and I started having premature labor with him at about 21 weeks. And so I was on point the whole time. And then he had asthma and he had allergies and all. And at that point in my life, I hadn't really done that kind of elimination concept. I talk to people about this a lot. Like fasting, a lot of times for me, has more to do with understanding what is potentially making my body sick. Like something is making me sick. And so it's that same kind of concept that I don't know that it's not normal to kind of have like heartburn all the time if I don't cut things out and then put things back in and go, oh, that's the one that's causing the problem. And so I started doing some of that with my son, and then because my birth with my son was so challenging, it led me into having a home birth with my second daughter. And I actually had her at home in the tub and, all of that kind of stuff. And so we had that connection, which I thought was really great. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about how you ended up choosing to go down the path of the home birth and what those experiences were like for you, particularly here in Corpus Christi, because my baby was born 16 years ago. So what's it like now?
Well, there's a really great group of midwives here now. The midwife that I used, she was the first and only nurse midwife. So in Corpus Christi, her name is Sandra. She is no longer practicing independently. She works now with, I think, not Bay Area. She works with another hospital here in Corpus now. But at the time of my fourth child, she was the first and the only one. Prior to that, when I was pregnant here in Corpus with my second baby, when we were still in the military, I had looked for a nurse midwife and I couldn't find one because at the time TRICARE would cover nurse midwives. They wouldn't cover any practicing midwives. They had to be nurse midwives. So I looked for one and I couldn't find one. And the closest one was in San Antonio. And so that's where I met Nikki MacGyver Brown. She lives in San Antonio and she's a very well-known midwife now. At the time, she was kind of getting started. We met at a Starbucks and I loved her instantly because potentially I could have gone up to San Antonio and stayed with my family and had my daughter there. But it just didn't work out for us logistically that at that point with my second daughter. So I met her back then. And I knew if I ever had another baby, I would have it with her. And so we did live in San Antonio with my third baby. And I met her again, and she delivered my third baby there at my home beside my bed. It was a phenomenal experience. It was very eye-opening and very easy. I love the ease of having babies at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about not being in your comfort space. You know where everything is. Everyone else knows where things are. Your midwife comes to visit you. Hey, your washing machine is here. They start a laundry before they even leave your house. They know where your kitchen is. They know what you need. They can get you whatever you need. So it's so much more
I think
of a comfort to have them at home.
Sorry, I think it helps. You mentioned earlier too, and I certainly can connect with this. And sometimes people, I think the anxiety part of it, I think for some people, the idea of not being in a hospital causes them great anxiety. But for other people, especially people who have had a lot of experience with hospitals, that it actually gives them more anxiety to be in the hospital. So I heard you mention that earlier. And I think that hearing you, like your voice says, and my voice does also, oh, it's so easy to have a birth at home. It's so easy because they're here and I'm not anxious and in my own comfortable space. And I think that that's an important part where it's just what connects with you, best mama, that's having healthy baby, healthy mama. That's the most important.
For sure.
Anxiety. Where are you going to have the lowest amount of anxiety? And so I appreciate it very much. I definitely connected with that. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. So she was the midwife for my third baby. And when I had my fourth, we had moved back to Corpus. We were now no longer in the military. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, before I even told my husband, I called Nikki and I said, Nikki, what am I going to do? I have my babies fast. You cannot get here in time. I need somebody here in Corpus. Who do you know? So she told me about a midwife named Melinda Pond. She is still here locally in Corpus. She's been around for many, many years. She is, I think, one of the longest standing midwives here in Corpus. She moved away for a bit, but she moved back a few years ago. So Nikki told me she had heard wonderful things about her, but my comfort level was being with a nurse midwife. And that's exactly something that I talk to moms about. Like, you have to figure out what you are comfortable with and what makes you have peace and what you can live with. Because there's so many people where I just couldn't live with myself if something happened and I were at home. I had to trust myself that my body knew what to do. And in a normal, healthy pregnancy, this is a normal, healthy labor and delivery. So those are the things that I trusted and that I knew to be true. And that gave me relief from any anxiety of having babies at home.
Yeah.
But I liked the added protection of having a nurse midwife. And so Nikki was the first to let me know. She said I don't think she's even out on the market yet. Her name is Sandra, and she's opening an office with Melinda, and she is the only nurse midwife that I have ever seen there in Corpus. So I immediately called, I believe I called Melinda because I don't think Sandra even had a number yet. So I called Melinda and she connected us. And it was a wonderful experience to be here and in Corpus where everything is so close versus in San Antonio where everything's far away. You have to worry about when people get there and what people are doing and what time of day it is and all that jazz. Especially since I had my baby so fast, I needed someone here almost immediately. And so Sandra was a perfect fit for me. She was always very lovely. And another big thing for anyone who's trying to interview a midwife or a OB or whoever you want, if your kids can get along with your caregiver, it just speaks volumes. So that was always a big plus to be able to have my kids there at my appointments and have them get used to her because she would be coming to our home and they would need to be used to seeing her. And in big moments too, letting the kids participate in sonograms and all of that. It's just a wonderful way for, especially me having all girls, for them to see what normal healthy pregnancies look like, and also to see, you know, when complications do come up, like with my last pregnancy, I had low iron, and then we had to get that taken care of with supplements and vitamins and whatnot, and then I had low platelets, and so I had to do what I can. So I appreciate that they were able to participate in a sense of and witness the trials also that go on in pregnancy, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's a lot of real life stuff. And they're able to see that and see, oh, this is what my mom did so that she could still have a baby at home. This is what my mom did. And look at the baby we had at home. You know, it's all a full circle picture for me to be able to give that picture to them to remember their whole lives and be able to say, I saw my mom have a baby at home.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the idea of being able to share with them things that, whether ultimately for me, because now my kids are 21 and the two I birthed are 21 and 16, and they're coming to a point in their life where they're making their own decisions about food. They're making their own decisions about different types of medicines and things that they're going to take or not take. They're going to make decisions about childbirth. You know, my son's wife is going to make a decision, and what his mother thinks is not going to have anything to do with it. And, you know, different things like that. And I think that it's really important the way I feel about it is that I've given them options and I've shown them what things can look like. And I've shown them that there is possibility to take things into your own hands and to just align with what is just generally whole health, wellness, mind, body, spirit. And past that, you make the decisions and you face the consequences of the decisions you make. And I think that's a huge part of the wellness conversation. I think it's a huge part of the birth conversation as well. And so that kind of leads me over into, as you've gone through the process of, learning about wellness from the beginning because of allergies, which is not unusual. A lot of people kind of have started their wellness journey and some sort of allergy type of thing. And then birthing as a mom, 4 baby girls. I didn't realize all years was 4 girls. That's so fantastic. But then how has the pandemic affected your household and your wellness techniques and things that you've done as it related to that?
So since the pandemic, I'm going to be real honest here. At the beginning, I was very anxious because, like I said, with my daughter and all her allergies and the information, of course, how limited it was at the beginning with the respiratory issues, I was very, very, very cautious. Like the most, I made everyone basically like they worked in a hospital and were covered in germs, like showered, do everything before my husband had to take off shoes, go shower, change, all of that. But unfortunately, that was driven by a lot of anxiety and fear. And I'm sure it happened for a lot of people, but that's just my truth. That's just how it happened with me. So, what I knew to turn to were essential oils and elderberry syrup. I knew that those were 2 surefire ways for me to help support my family's immune system. And since I lived in Corpus, I also homeschool my girls. So that's another journey. But in that process of homeschooling, I had joined a group that had other homeschoolers, and one mom just said that her kids, she couldn't get them to drink elderberry syrup, and I just thought that that was insane because it tastes so delicious. So, and my kids literally run to it every time I have it and I call for them. So she had asked, hey, next time you make a batch, can you make some for me? And so I did, and she became a regular friend that I just added to whenever I made my own batches. And then from there, she had a group. Her daughter was in a play, and their whole team had gotten sick. So the first time I ever made a large batch of elderberry syrup was because of that. She just called me and said, hey, everyone is sick in our cast and we need to get well. We need to get well now. How many can you make and how fast can you make it? So that was the first time that I had ever made a large batch. And now fast forward to the pandemic. Prior to that, I was just still making one large batch maybe every month, and then I would sell it throughout the month. People would, family and friends, really, that was it. But after the pandemic, I had a lot of people inquiring and asking, and they had heard about it, but now actually doctors were prescribing elderberry syrup, like real, regular, not even naturally minded doctors were prescribing this to their patients. And so a lot of people started asking about it. So that's when I started making the Instagram page for Mrs. C's Wellness Wonders, because I realized not a lot of people had a lot of knowledge about what elderberries do, how they stop viruses from spreading, how the studies have shown, that if you're taking it beforehand, it can prevent you from ever getting sick and having symptoms. If you're taking it during, it can shorten and lessen symptoms. It's like nobody knew this. It felt like nobody knew this. And the few that did were already doing their own thing. So there was very few people, I guess, who knew the benefits that this syrup could have. And it just really boosted all of the knowledge around me when I started that group. It was reaching strangers I had never met, people I had never known. And I felt bad because people were asking for it in different cities and I had to turn them away because I was like, I'm not shipping glass right now. I'm not ready for that in my business plan. I wasn't even planning on starting a business, really. It's just how it's worked out for me. So the pandemic has really just kind of pushed me. I'm a little bit of an introvert, so it kind of pushed me into the outside world to start sharing and not keep so much to myself, I guess. With birth and with nursing and all of that, I really felt a passion for sharing that with other women, but still it was within my circle, friends. I've helped many friends get ready for birth and get ready for nursing and do FaceTime and watch latches and do all of that. I'm not certified in any of that, but it's one of my favorite things to do is to help other women. And so this way, I felt like I really connected with moms on this level of keeping your whole family healthy and what can you do to do that. And this elderberry syrup was just one of the ways that we really felt added a layer of protection and added a layer of control, something that we didn't have during this pandemic. So I really felt like the anxiety and fear, although it was tough to get through, it really propelled goodness and wellness in a way that hadn't been out there before. So I appreciate what you do on this show too, because it really was needed and it is needed.
Yeah. No, that's
the fact that wellness is talked about.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I felt about the whole thing, is that the opportunity to share. But I will tell you that one thing related to your initial anxiety about it, it definitely was a place we were in a serious lockdown. My son is up in college and he's an asthmatic that has had pneumonia more than once. So I was really concerned about this virus in his lungs, if that's what and of course we learned a lot more about it and we learned, fast about things. And so, yes, we were trying to layer on, I would say, use all of the protection we were being taught, but also all the things that we had in our own home that we already knew about and the different things that we knew about it. So it's nice to be able to connect with more voices and I think that you're 100% correct in that the pandemic has been a place and time that I feel like has actually forced us to come out and say, I know some things that might be able to help, and let me see if I can, extend to you or share with you some of the things that have helped my family be well. And so, I mean, truly, that's what this is about. But I hear that connection with women and other women, and I think one of the things I always talk about on this webcast is that just because like your story will resonate with someone that James Hunter's story didn't resonate with, and James Hunter's story will resonate with someone that my stories won't resonate with, and things like that. And I think that that's an important part we've learned during this pandemic. We've all learned about how to make those connections and resonate with the people who our words and our voices really align with. And I appreciate that very much. So I've been really glad to get to know you. I did want to give a little shout out to Chris. We are live, by the way. We did manage to get live this time. We're live on YouTube, but Chris Butler, he just had a baby not that long ago. I think just not even a month or a few months ago. And he said that he didn't know that midwives and doulas even existed until last year. And so he's been so thankful to have that available, those things available for his family as well. So yeah, I think I told you in our very first conversation that my children are 21 and 16, and 16 years ago, there were really, really, really far outsider people that were doing some doula stuff, but there wasn't really these options. There weren't midwives, there weren't those kinds of things. And being kind of one of those like leading edge personalities in Corpus Christi, I've stepped into a lot of things, and I actually acted as a doula for years and helped people do that, and can still do it to this day. But more important to me is to see that there are women that are now coming out and saying, this is what I can do to help. And, certification or whether you do it as a business or not doesn't really matter. If you're helping women with childbirth and wellness, then you're a doula. Let me tell you about the back in the day when all of the women were the doctors and all of the women were the healers and all of that. I really value that very, very much. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Now, before we sign off today, I always like to ask somebody, what's that one thing that you want to make sure that you share with our audience, and just really give them, when they close it down today, what is the thing you can give them that will help benefit their wellness the most?
Sure. I've been thinking about this, of course, closely with the pandemic, but I think overall, elderberry syrup is great. I love it. It's a great way to support our immune systems, and essential oils are great. They're a great way to support our system. But I really feel like the full body wellness is where it's at. Like, you can't take elderberry syrup and then go eat an Arby's sandwich, for dinner, McDonald's for breakfast. You can't do that and expect the elderberry syrup to work its full potential. You have to be taking care of your whole body through what you eat, the way you moving your body, getting out, getting sunlight, exposing ourselves to elements like sun and rain and things. Your mental health has been a huge awakening point for me in this past year. Having my fourth baby was not an easy feat. It has had a lot of adjustments within our family, and the pandemic actually offered me a lot more support because of all the Zoom things that I could be a part of now versus before. I didn't have a babysitter, or I'm nursing a baby. I couldn't get out of the house by myself, at least. And one of the best things that I did for myself this pandemic was take an Enneagram course. And through that, I really learned that first of all, I'm a 2, I'm a helper. So, but I was such a helper. I was acting on the negative side of my helping and not letting anyone do it for me. And, not putting myself first, not helping myself in any way. I was just doing everything for everyone all the time. And it was getting and becoming exhausting, especially having 4 daughters, 4 young kids, and homeschooling and all of that. So this past pandemic this past year has just really helped me to get into a really good mental state. Of course, it's not perfect. It's not amazing, but it is amazingly better than it was years prior. I just turned 30 over the pandemic too. So that I feel like everyone has a big change in life, and mine was turning 30 during the pandemic, getting my mental health in check, getting all of these things. And it's been, although tough, although trying at times, it's been a huge benefit to me to get through it in that full body wellness, the spiritual aspect, depending, for me, it's God. I depend a lot. I spend a lot of time in prayer. I really wanted to pass that along to my girls. I really want them, as a mom, I really want them to see all the aspects that you can be well, what you can control. I want them to see that they can do it too. They can, I'm not the best example at all the times, but I want them to see, we can eat healthy, we can exercise, we can pray, we can talk about emotions, we can talk about hard things, and we can be the best, so that whatever happens around us that we can't control, we're at our best self to do that. And this whole time has been helped gear me towards that, being my best whole self, and not just parts of me are the best. I've really tried to focus on the whole self, and not just the individual self.
Yeah, I just feel like those words are so important. And I think that empowering women is so important. And I feel like you being in the sphere of Corpus Christi and South Texas, and expressing that to your children and communicating with other women and sharing your story is essential. And I'm so grateful to have voices like yours, because one of the things my network is really, really important to me. But one of the things that I've learned is that we connect with networks, and we strengthen networks, and we support one another. And that's one of the things, the connection through this whole pandemic has been so phenomenal to me, and to be able to learn from other people. And you're right. I like to touch. I have a love for oxytocin, let me tell you. But I feel like there's a level of that can actually happen over these Zoom. And I think that what I have gotten out of this, and it sounds like you have too, and have shared with your daughters and your family and the world around you, is that we can take any situation and turn it into an opportunity to be better people, and to connect with our higher self and God in the best way that makes sense for our family and us. And I'm so thankful to have you come on and share your stories with us. And I hope that everyone will reach out and connect with Hannah. She does have a personal Facebook page as well. And she also, of course, has that Instagram account. Tell me it again. This is
Mrs. C's Wellness Wonder. It's Mrs. C_Wellness Wonders.
Okay, Mrs. C's Wellness Wonder, but I think if you look up Hannah Cummings, it also comes up as well. And so be sure to go over to my YouTube channel, Aislinn Campbell, and check out episodes 1 through 5. This is episode 6. And if you love it, subscribe to my channel, and you'll get lots more videos and things like that. Thank you. And episode 7 will be coming up soon. I'll be scheduling that, getting the event placed up there, and we'll do that as soon as possible. But if you have an interest in being interviewed, I would love it if you just reach out with me. Just tap me any way that makes sense, connect with me any way that makes sense, and we'll have a chat and figure out the best way to fit you into sharing your voices for wellness. But thank you all so much for being here with us today. I'm so glad we got a chance to go live today. And from now on, I guess we'll just be doing YouTube live and then sharing it on Facebook. That's how we'll do it. Hannah, thank you so much for connecting with me. Thank you so much for answering when I reached out to you, and sharing my information with other people. And I hope that you have a fabulous day. And I look forward to getting to meet your daughters when everybody is not sharing lots of extra germs.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do for our community. So have a great day too.
Thank you. All right, I'm signing us out here.